Hey, welcome to Slice of Life, where faith meets the everyday. I'm James, and each podcast I invite someone to dive into the moments that shape us, challenge us, and draw us closer to Christ. From coffee shop conversations to carpool reflections, we're talking about real life and the spiritual truths that help us live it well. So grab your slice of time and let's grow together. Well, hey, welcome to Slice of Life. I don't know why, but I got Stephanie with me one more time. She just poor girl has to spend time with me.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have an enjoyable conversation
I'm
today.
excited for it.
Well, we'll see where we're at. I'm in a mood today, so we're gonna see. We're
Can't
gonna
wait.
see how
This is gonna be
this
great.
goes. I was kind of hoping for another unhinged, but I think we're gonna go a different direction
I have to have time
today.
to gather the
Oh,
questions,
more
you know,
questions.
like
So yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, unhinged is just rapid fire. I get 2 minutes to respond to questions, and um, a lot of them are very difficult to answer in 2 minutes
right.
with enough, but it's just enough to get you thinking about things. So today we're supposed to be talking about family planning.
Yeah. So if you go back and you go to our discussion on life, you had said that life begins before conception, which made me have this like rabbit trail of thought of, well, what does that mean about contraceptives?
Right.
And different denominations have a different standard
Yeah.
on where, if they allow it or they don't allow it. So that made me want to have a conversation now on biblical family planning.
Right.
And how do you plan to have a full quiver and to subdue the earth and all the things that the Bible does talk about,
Yeah.
but also in like a practical.
Right.
Like I only have 3. I know my brother has 6.
Yeah.
3 is my limit of sanity. So how do we look at
Yeah.
how do we look at that?
Yeah.
But with like the biblical lens.
Man, that's funny that you word it that way, because I think that's the struggle that we're all going to have.
Right.
And it's actually a much larger conversation than just family. But I
Oh.
think we can go there
Okay.
and then hopefully make it make sense, right? Because I mean, you said like the quiver, right?
Right.
So the Bible's very specific, and in Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs talk about that you've got a full quiver, this idea of having children,
Right.
and the more children you have, the more blessed you are.
Yes.
Right. But understand that that's contextually based, meaning that historically, culturally based in that world where, if growing up then as an Israelite, more than likely you are in some sort of trade, whether you're a shepherd or a farmer,
Mm-hmm.
right? In that world, and so the more children you have, the more laborers you have.
Right. Yeah.
And so that and then understanding that there's no retirement plans, so your retirement plans are your kids,
Yeah.
right? So the more kids you have, the better your opportunity for retirement. Meaning, not talking about like a great mansion or anything, but the fact that you have multiple individuals that could take care of you, and you're not a burden on just one individual.
It's spread
Right.
out.
It's spread
Yeah.
out. Yeah. And so I think one of the struggles that we have as Christians today is we read scripture, and we amalgamate it. What's up with the big words today? Sorry, guys.
It's like you're in a doctorate program.
Yeah, right. Sorry. Right. We just force it onto our culture and say,
Right.
well, the Bible says, this, so therefore I must do that. The Bible says to have a lot of kids, so therefore I must have a lot of kids. Well, yeah, but it's talking in a cultural context. It's
Okay.
talking in that moment, right? And so if we go in the New Testament, there's warnings not to have children, basically, right? 'Cause
Right.
end times and talking about that, right? Just warning, hey, when you see it coming, don't have kids.
Yeah.
'Cause it's gonna be tough for them, right?
Yeah.
So then we can go there and go, okay, well, I think we're getting close to the end time, so I'm gonna stop having kids altogether. So,
Right.
where do we go from that? And I think that struggle, and not to derail the conversation, but that struggle is the same struggle as we read the majority of the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are certain things that are culturally contextual. They're there because of the culture of that season, of that time period, right? That the heartbeat behind it is still there and is still applicable today, but not the methodology.
Okay.
So again, I don't have to have a lot of kids,
Right.
right, to do to farm. I don't need to raise them up, right? And I have retirement planning as well.
Yes.
So I don't need my kids, or I'm not, or shouldn't be worried about, ensuring that my kids I have enough of them where I'm not a burden on them.
Right.
Does that
Because
make sense?
you're still not going to be a burden
Right.
on them. It's just a different means
Yes.
of releasing that burden.
Yeah, because of how our culture has shifted now
Yeah.
to where we do have retirement plans, 401k plans. We have that our homes. We don't give our homes to our kids.
Yeah.
Right. At least some of us don't. Right.
It's not the standard.
Right. Yeah. That's not the normal thing. The kid will get my home when I die.
Right.
Like I'm not going to invite them in and they're going to live now in my home, and I'm going to be the resident in the home.
Yeah.
Where they own it. We don't do that anymore. They get married, they move away.
Right.
But as a norm,
Right.
So I think all of those things that we look at, and we're like, okay, well, this is what I should be doing because that's what the Bible said. Yeah, but do you understand the cultural context at that moment and why they would have to do that?
Right.
Why they'd have to walk through that process? What was it, in that moment? And so I can't just automatically say, well, they did it there, so therefore I have to do it here. No, because it's a different world. But what's the context?
Yeah.
Meaning, what's the reasoning behind it?
Okay.
One would be when we think about kids. Then the kids should understand their responsibility at some point that they're going to have to parent their parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a thing that's culturally unbiased, meaning that should never change.
Yeah.
That is what's meant by that, the heart of that mandate in the early scriptures, right? And so I think we've got to attack scripture a little bit better, with how we just assimilate things and put them in. So, well, this is what it means. So, man, I've got to have a lot of kids,
right? And I always understood part of the mandate in the Bible was also like the overwhelming the culture, essentially, right? Like bringing more Christians, or in those days, Jewish people into the culture so that they would be stronger than the pagan culture around them. Do you think that's still applicable, or do you think that's not applicable anymore?
Well, I think it is, because other religions are still doing it. We'll just say it. The Muslim faith, they talk about in Europe, and I heard this years ago, and I just saw a recent study about it. Europe's going to be a Muslim nation very soon, because of the population growth. 5, 6, 7 kids, where a European, born European individual, might have one child.
Okay.
I think it's like 1.2.
Okay.
Right, is their average. So when you think about it, so 2 people are having 1.2. What's happening? They're
having less,
declining by 0.8 every generation.
Yeah.
Where 2 Muslims are having 4, 5, 6 kids.
Yeah.
So they're overwhelming the growth, and we're seeing that in America as well.
Okay.
Right. And so you've got that struggle that's out there, but does that mean we're supposed to have more kids, or because I think part of that, again, from the Old Testament time, specifically the Old Testament time, when they were going in and they're having a lot of kids, to your point, now you have more army. Because they're doing battles all the time.
Yeah.
There's always, just read the Old Testament. They're battling all the time.
Yeah.
There's sometimes they'll have 40 years apiece or 80 years apiece, but more than likely, almost every generation's going to have to fight. And so they have to replenish that. Plus longevity of life, as well. People didn't live as long. Yeah. Right. So they kind of had to continue to do, to pump kids out. Right.
Right.
Like, just keep pumping them out, get a whole bunch, so we could have population that would continue to grow and flourish, I guess.
Yeah.
And keep their culture together.
Okay. And too, even if you were a Christian and you did have a lot of kids, it doesn't really matter if they don't stay in the faith.
Exactly.
Like that's where the whole quantity or quality of discipleship kind of
Right.
really comes into play is just because we're having kids,
Yeah.
are we training them
Right.
or are we just
Yeah.
hoping for the best? And 2 hours on Sunday,
Yeah.
that's good enough for
Yeah.
the whole week.
Well, and, you know, yeah, I don't know we're not talking about that subject, but it's a very passionate subject of mine. So bear with me in a moment. It's that struggle again. So if we look at cultural, what
Yeah.
the Bible again, we love to quote, train up a child in the way they should go. When they get old, they won't depart from it.
Right.
Blah blah blah. Right. We quote that, and then we call God to the carpet.
Yeah.
And we say, okay, God, I trained up the child, and they're no longer going to church. They're no longer seeking you. And my question is, what did you do to train them?
Yeah.
See, in the Old Testament, the parents trained.
Yeah.
They were raised with the parents. The parents taught them to read, to write. They taught them to memorize scripture if you're a boy specifically, right? They taught them all that stuff. And it wasn't until they became older that they actually started going to quote unquote schools.
Right.
You know, but the formative years, the child was taught by their parents, and then more than likely, if they stayed in the same trade, they trained by their parents.
Right.
There was an actual thing. Today, what do? We send our kids to school, right? And most parents, both are working, right? They come home, eat dinner, they watch TV, they go to bed. So what training did you do that day?
Yeah.
Did you talk to your kid about what they learned at school, right?
Yeah.
Because depending on what school they go to, they could have learned some bad things. Even if they went to a Christian school, they could have learned bad things.
Oh,
Did you talk to them about that, right? Did you have any biblical training at all? Or are you waiting, to your point, to a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night?
Yeah.
You know, let me just tell you, you're not training your children. Someone else is.
Yeah.
Right. The TV, the social media, these kids today, they're talking about they're watching hours of YouTube every day.
Yeah.
Well, that's who's training your kids, right? And so all of these parents, they're lamenting where their adult children have gone. You know, it's hard for me, but I have to tell them, you didn't train them.
Yeah. Right. It's like society did, not them.
And so you can't hold God to a promise that you didn't fulfill the prerequisite for.
Yeah.
Right. You didn't show them. Right. You didn't even come to church every week. Some of them, like
right.
You know, and what they saw at your home was something that they didn't want to replicate anyways.
Yeah.
So even when you didn't do any actual training, your attitude and how you talked about things and what you watched and what you allowed in your home trained them.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think, when we think family planning, I think that's such a big part. And I like what you said that, you got 3 and you're like, that's it. That's what
that's
I
our
can handle.
sanity limit. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, for us too, there was a good chance we would have stopped it too, just because, going through a miscarriage and all that afterwards, I was like, I don't know if I could do that again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I could run the risk of having to go through that again. And the third pregnancy was wildly different than the other two.
Yeah.
Because you have your eyes open to what can go wrong now. Right. But by the grace of God, we did get our third.
Yeah.
And, we thank God every day for her. But at the same time,
I thank God for her too.
She's adorable.
She blesses my heart. She'll come in, guys. She'll like, hi, Pastor, or something.
Yeah.
I mean, not she's saying
2.
pastor.
Yeah, she's 2. So
she's saying pastor, but it just blesses me. Like,
yeah, and it's I can't imagine my life without her. And when we were having the discussion about more or not more, and it's like I struggle though because I'm like I almost didn't have her. So then it's like, but who am I missing out on?
Yeah.
But also, I don't have any more hands. I'm already out-handed. Like I don't have hands for any more of these kids already.
But I think that's where we get into the different beliefs in religions, right? We'll just say Christian religion, where some are like no birth control at all,
right?
That is, if you're taking birth control pills or using protection, that they see it as a form of abortion. You're aborting the possibility of life, right? Some denominations allow abortion, which I just don't understand, but it is what it is, right? It's wrong.
I mean, that's go back
but
to
it's
the other
right,
podcast.
right?
Yeah.
You know, and so and then others, say, well, when you're done, you're done. And I think, it's hard for us to back any of that up from scripture,
Yeah.
although people like to, right? And say, well, God's, it's God's decision. And it kind of goes back to my conversation, the one before, where, that life began before, right? And I base that off the concept of Jesus, God saying, hey, I knew you before I formed you.
Yeah.
Right. So this idea now is knowing that it was. Does that mean the life really began before? No, right? But the knowledge of who we are, and the knowledge of what He desires to do in us.
Yeah.
And to me is why abortion is so wrong, right? For the moment a baby is formed, that means God knows, right? And so the question becomes, getting your tubes tied, or any contraceptives, any of that, is that okay? We don't see that in the Bible, right?
Right.
That idea, right, of that. We see it in little things like, this is a weird one, but these guys, how do I say this? Well, the kids aren't watching, right? They ejaculate outside, right?
Right. With Judah.
Right. Exactly. And because they didn't want to have a child.
Yeah.
Right.
They did not want the family line to continue through her. Right.
They don't, is right. So, spilling their semen outside, I think, is what the scripture says, right? So we see some of that thing. We know from historical moments that they did have that concept.
Yeah.
Of I'm not going to do anything to produce life.
Right.
Right. And so we can actually go to scriptures and see it there, but we don't see, in my opinion, any biblical mandate from God, thou shalt not use contraceptives.
Right.
Right. We don't see that.
Yeah. And in that, it's the heart of what they were doing and why they were doing it, to me, is the issue, not the fact that they didn't reproduce life.
Right.
They didn't obey what they were supposed to do. That would have been right by the widow. Right. They were purposely like skirting the system almost.
Yeah, because if they had a child, that child would have not been theirs. It would have been their brother's.
Right. Which is like a whole other
like
a whole other.
Yeah. And they didn't want to have any seed that was not theirs.
Right.
They wanted to make sure it was their child. And so I think, like the sperm bank concept, right?
Yeah.
That's what they did. They just didn't want to have that. And so it was wrong for that purpose, because they were not fulfilling the law. The law said that they were supposed to, right, propagate their brother's line, but they were unwilling to do that. So when we look at those, we can't, again, the whole conversation really comes back to how do I understand text, the scriptures, and apply that into my context. And people read that and go, well, that tells you shouldn't be doing contraceptives. Well, if we go historically back too, we find a lot of times that that sex was used a lot for having children, basically, right? I mean, that was
the whole point.
It wasn't. There were just the thought that that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. We're just going to continue to have children, because again, it's a blessing for us. We can handle it. In fact, the more children we have, the better we are.
Yeah.
Livelihood, the whole thing. Right. And so I think that the argument then becomes one of stewardship.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. And I hate to say in my opinion, but when I read the scriptures and I go through, like, back then, it was good stewardship to have a bunch of kids.
Because you had more workers, right. So you had more, you could have a bigger flock and all those other things.
But in our world today, is it good stewardship? It costs a lot of money to have kids. I don't. Somebody once said I heard like $1 million to raise a kid to 18.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if that's right or not, but man, they're expensive.
Yeah.
Praise God for the military.
My gosh. Yeah.
We had our first daughter in the Air Force, and she cost us $8.
Yeah.
Because that was my wife's meals.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we paid for, were her meals. Yes, $8. Right?
Well, and if you are the service member who gives birth, you don't have to pay for your meals.
Right.
So when we had our second, at a military base. Goose egg.
Yeah.
We walked out of there with
right.
nothing. It was great.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you need to buy diapers.
Yeah, there is that.
And then that
There
hurt,
is that.
you know. But yeah, so I think that's where I think the conversation needs to go to stewardship
Okay.
more than what's the biblical mandate of, can I use contraceptives or can I not?
Okay.
And I know there are people that are wildly passionate about, you know, if God wants to give me a child, he's going to give me a child. Yes, but he's also called you to be a steward of your body,
Right.
right? And so doing what's healthy for your body, the longevity of your body, that means what you eat, what
Yeah.
you drink, how much sleep you get, whether you exercise or not. You know, those are all stewardship things of the body. God might want me to live longer, but if I'm stuffing my face with stuff that's going to kill me earlier,
And not working out.
that's not God's
Yeah.
will, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think the same thing for some women, you know, that they've had so many children, or just even a couple. My wife, after the second one, it went really bad. I mean, things were not good for her, for the child, right? And it became that moment of like, they're in there. Do we tie
Yeah.
the tubes now, right?
Yeah.
Because the next pregnancy, you know, unless God, I mean, obviously God can work a miracle, might not be good. Or,
Right.
you know, more likely will not be good. You know, so we've got to look at the health of everybody involved, you know, and say, okay, we're gonna, as good stewards of that moment, we're gonna take care, right?
Yeah.
The longevity of that, and I think that's the struggle. Again, God can do anything,
Yeah.
which means that God could untie those tubes if
Right.
he wanted to,
Right.
you know. But I think with that, that's where this conversation ends up going to, into this idea of stewardship, and going, okay, how many kids can I handle?
Yeah.
Right? What is the makeup of my family? What does that look like? What can I afford?
Yeah.
Right? I think that's such a big struggle, especially in our world today, the economic situation that we're in. People continually have a lot of kids, and you can't afford them.
Yeah.
You know, and then so you actually become a burden on society, or you burden your kids,
Yeah.
right? And so you have all these kids, and then at some point, you know, because of how our society works, you know, your older kids get harmed because they're taking care of the younger kids, you know, and so you begin to see this and go, okay, am I being good stewards of God's resources?
Right.
The finances he's given me, the ability, the time that I've got, and then obviously my kids.
Yeah.
I've got to be a good steward for my kids, right? Because what's my goal? I hope my goal as a father is to raise up healthy, in my case, daughters that understand God, know God, love God, serve God, and are fall into the calling for their life.
Yeah.
You know, that they're productive and that they know what healthy relationships are, right? Which means for me as a father with two daughters, it means that I need to make sure that I had a lot of time for them to understand what a husband looks like, right? To not be a one where they never experience fatherly love either, because I was spending so much time with other people or doing other things, right? Or I just didn't have enough time. And you know, I traveled a lot in the early years of both my daughters. I was also a pastoring and youth director. I was doing a lot of stuff, but it was those things I was like, I always have time for you guys, and had to carve out
Yeah.
that time and make sure.
It has to be a
But
priority.
realizing that if I would have had more, I don't know if I would have had enough time for the third.
Right.
I always lament. I always wanted a son, right? I still do, right? I would have loved to have had a son. You know, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, boys are crazy, but you know, just to have that,
Yeah.
right? I love sports. You know, neither one of my daughters really enjoyed sports. They're not athletic, and there's no competition in them, right?
Oh, no, yeah.
We play Monopoly and they give up. You know,
Yeah.
I hate that. Right? So I see that, and that's my desire. But I also understand, like, when I looked at my life and I look backwards now, man, I don't know if I would have had the time
to have a son.
to have a son.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I would have had the time for my son, but when my daughters had turned out the way they turned out,
Right. Or would they
which
have
is a
seen
blessing.
that?
I think my daughters are awesome. I love them to death. You know, and they're very secure in who they are,
Yeah.
and you know, they're not chasing after guys. They're, you know, there's none of that. They broke, you know, generational curses of my family forever. Where, you know, a lot of the women in my family got pregnant very early in
Yeah.
life and unmarried and the whole thing. They're both, I mean, one's in their 20s, one's in their 30s, you know, and we don't have any of that,
Yeah.
you know. And so I think, again, that's where we begin the conversation more than you know, am I stopping God's will if I use contraception, you know, more than that conversation. I think it's like he told us to be fruitful and multiply,
Yeah.
right? It does not mean be fruitful and have a bunch of kids.
It means also multiply your
right?
character.
Multiply, exactly,
Yeah.
to train up your children, right? You begin to look at all that and go, what does it mean to be a godly parent?
Yeah.
And if I start there, then I've got to look, am I being a godly parent? Okay, I've got 2. Am I being a god? Okay, cool. Do I have bandwidth to be a godly parent to 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I do. 4. Okay, 5. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Maybe not any longer.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not a godly parent. I'm stretched too thin financially.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not talking about living in a posh life and you know, I mean, I grew up on ramen, right? So I'm not talking about that world, you know. That you've got to be poor, you've got to be rich. I'm talking about where you're not draining society,
Yeah.
right? And that the needs of your kids are being met,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah.
Not that they've got the Nike Air Jordan shoes, right?
But that they're
but
happy
they have a
and
good pair of
well-adjusted.
shoes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're able to do that which God has called them to do, and to live in that society, and to grow and not be limited because of the circumstances around them.
Yeah.
Right? Not to have their educational world that be stunted, basically. You know, educational wise, or spiritually wise, or emotionally wise.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And my brother has 6 kids for reference. He is, I mean, to our standards, that's a lot. When he rolls in, he brings half the grandkids with him, you know. But their kids are. That's what it is. You know, he has time for all of his individual children. He takes them all out special for their birthday, just the 2 of them. They do things in small groups sometimes, or individually a lot, and they still have time to do, you know, all those family things. Like, to me, that's a great example of having a full quiver, but also a quiver that's taken care of. And each arrow is very sharp and is, you know, well taken care of. If you have a quiver full of broken arrows, you don't really have a quiver full. So I think that that's a big thing, is making sure that it's a full quiver that's being well taken care of too.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they do it, because they homeschool all 6 of their kids, and they like his wife is incredible. They're very organized with all of that. I was like 3.
Yeah.
3's good. And we felt a lot of peace over that.
Right.
And I think that's another issue. You do have to bring God into the conversation.
No.
I know.
That's crazy.
I know. And you have to pray
we
about.
We just lost everybody. They just turned it off. Like,
I know.
Bring God into my life? Are you
especially
kidding
with
me?
that personal and private of decision.
Right.
But like, we had so much peace after 3. Like 3 was very conclusionary for us.
Right.
Not for everyone, but for us, that was where we just felt total peace.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's again that stewardship, but again, to your point, it's such a beautiful one, because it's what is it you desire? You know, what is it that you're wanting to do? Because I think when we look at our world today, just in America, we're talking just America at this point. Yeah, I think we've got to really pay attention to what we're doing and what we're raising, and I think the extra effort that goes into parenting today. You know, I said my daughter's 27, I think, you know, 31. Right, they're old, so I'm no longer, I'm a parent, but not really, you know, in that concept. I'm not worrying about training them up. Now I'm worried about coaching them and helping them and giving them advice and wisdom, you know. But as a pastor, I deal with a lot of families and a lot of parents and kids, and you see just the difficulty of that. And so even in our world today, I think it takes extra effort. I mean, we're, I'm 20 years departed from that. And I'm looking like, man, I don't know if I could have done 2 in this generation.
Yeah.
With all the extra stuff I was already doing, and then that ability, and just so thankful for what God did for us then, and I think as parents, man, getting as husband and wife together and praying, God, what is it you desire? What really do you, as parents, what is it? Because I'm looking at everything about my life and going, if I'm to be a good steward and a good parent and to raise up a child in the way that they should go, I need to be ensuring that I'm in the right season.
Yeah.
To be able to produce that which you want me to produce.
Yeah.
Boy, this will preach bigger, but that I'm prepared for that, so that when they are produced, that I have the finances, I have the time, I have the mental stability. I'm in a good season.
Yeah.
I remember when my wife and I got pregnant, but like I did, I got pregnant. I gained weight. So that was the first time I gained weight.
No, that's not the same.
Right.
That's
it is the same. It is the same, exactly the same. Labor pains and everything.
Your hand hurting because she's holding it does not count as you having labor pain.
It was difficult, man. It was horrible.
Poor baby. And that pull-out couch wasn't very comfortable at the hospital.
No, they wouldn't give me any medicine. I stayed at home. But I remember, we'd been married a little over a year. And she was bored. I'll just be honest. So we were in the military base, right?
Yeah.
I was fireman, 24 on, 24 off. We had no money, but I didn't want her to work. She didn't want to work. So she was at home like 24 hours by herself.
And there's only so much
right.
There's only so much you can do in a house.
Yeah, and you don't want to hang out with a lot of those people sometimes in the military. Military's wives are interesting.
Catty.
Yeah.
Sorry, I will just say it.
Well, you could say it.
I'll say
you're a
it.
female,
It's fine.
so you could say that.
It gets catty sometimes.
And so, I remember her approaching me like, I want to have a baby. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. And so, we had a baby for that reason.
Yeah.
Was it the right time? I don't think it was. Now, God blessed us through that.
Right.
And, it wasn't the right reason, because she was bored. And I wish we would have been financially a little more set up.
Yeah.
I think our oldest daughter would have, we would have been able to do a little bit more for her.
Yeah.
In the right thing. Again, I hope people aren't hearing me like, we couldn't take her to ballet and, take her to trips to France. And no, I'm just talking about the quality of life just wasn't there.
Right.
That if we could have waited until I was a senior airman, right, instead of an A1C.
I forgot you had her as an A1C.
So, yeah, which means I made no money, guys. Like,
I forgot
you
about
started
that.
making money sort of in the senior airman.
Oh, getting to that was like a
right. Oh,
before the big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I mean, wait, so to understand what I'm talking about, like we would go on a date once a month, and the date was Arctic Circle, and you guys don't know what Arctic Circle. It's a burger joint. But they would have five, what do they call it? 5 for $5. And so you could get 5 cheeseburgers for $5, right? And a bag of fries for $5.
Right.
So that was our once a month, because that's what we could afford.
That was a big treat.
As an airman or an A1C was that,
Yeah.
and if we pulled some money to get aside, we could get a couple shakes with it.
Yeah.
And, I take it back. It wasn't cheeseburgers. That was an extra $1. So it was 5 hamburgers, and there were tiny hamburgers, not like sliders, but a little bit bigger.
Right.
Right. Cheapy McDonald's style hamburgers. Right. And so if it was a good month and we had skimped by and we're doing okay, we got cheeseburgers and we got some fries and we might share a shake. That was life.
Yeah.
Became a senior airman. Oh man, we'd go to Burger King.
Whoa.
Yeah. And 2 Whoppers for $5.
Yeah.
And fries. And we were spending like $16 for dinner. every other week. Like woo,
that
big,
lifestyle
big,
inflation gets you.
oh, it was awesome. It was awesome, right? It was a good time, But so we had her as an A1C, and so we just didn't have we didn't have the funds.
Yeah.
Praise God for the military, the fact that they paid me all the medicals, taking care of all that, right? But if we could have waited maybe a little bit longer, right, we would have been in a different position, But we also didn't pray about it, we just jumped into that, and I think it's an important conversation that the spouses should have, and again, inviting God into that, like, God, when is the right time?
Yeah.
When is the right time? And I think that's the struggle that a lot of people have is like God's perfect timing, right? And so therefore I'm pregnant because God wanted me to be pregnant. There's a lot of things that people have done that God didn't desire, but it's by your own free will, by your own volition, right? You did it. God will bless and God will move, right? And protect and he will fulfill his promises, right? But he doesn't just bless that which I do in his name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He blesses that which I do because of what he's told me to do.
The obedience.
God, what is your will?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's the struggle. And there's several scriptures. One I was thinking about earlier. I was actually reading the Bible this morning. I read the Bible every day.
Oh my gosh.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I don't think people do. So I was reading my Bible the other day. I don't know it all, right? Actually, I don't know it all. I read through the Bible every year, all the way through. And so this, I was reading about Saul, King Saul. He ends up, taking out the Amalekites, killing all the bad stuff, right? The defiled things, and keeping all the good stuff.
Yes.
And Samuel the prophet shows up and says, "Hey, what's this?" Because Saul was supposed to kill everything,
right?
But he didn't, right? And Samuel shows up and goes, "Hey, well, I hear cows and I hear sheep, right?
They're supposed to be dead.
Why am I hearing them do anything?" And Saul's response is the response we all say. This is what he goes. He goes, "Well, I kept them to sacrifice them to God."
Okay, but that's not what you were told to do.
Yeah, but it's a good reason. I have a good reason. I want to sacrifice it. And Samuel's response is, "It's better to obey than to sacrifice."
Yeah.
Right. And I think that goes through the whole thing. It's like I want to obey your voice, God. Right? I don't want you to just bless with that which I want. I want you to tell me what it is you desire, because I know there'll be automatic blessing there.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the blessing if I'm doing what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. That's a natural outcome. I do what God says, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
Right? Not that God bless me.
And now I'll do.
And right. And I think parenting is a lot of that. And family planning, that's really what we're talking about, is this idea that I'm trying to plan for my family. So what does that look like? Well, I think it looks like planning.
Yeah. Absolutely
Looks like planning. Am I in the right state? It's interesting if you follow like the Jewish tradition of the wedding, the groom, the husband, would go and prepare a place for his wife.
Mm-hmm. And
until that they were prepared, they didn't get married.
Right.
Right. Until he had a home, he had a place, he had a livelihood.
Yeah.
Well, what was that? Well,
that's planning. Yeah.
Right. Like they didn't just get, I fell in love with you. We're going to, we're betrothed, right? God's blessed this marriage, this union. So we're just going to do it. I don't know where we're living. I don't have a job yet. I don't have income, the whole thing, right? It's planning. And so I think with kids, I don't see why there's any difference in that. Why we shouldn't plan for, right? To go, okay, God, what is it you desire? Are we in the right state? Are we in the right moment? Have we planned? Are we ready to do everything we're called to do to raise this child appropriately?
Because it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
And
if you're doing it right.
And
again, going back to Proverbs, train up a child. If you're going to train up the child, then it's going to take effort.
Yeah. And I think too, like something that I've said to people who've asked, younger, teens or whatever, when they're talking about being a parent, I said, if you don't think you want to be a parent, you shouldn't be a parent.
Yeah.
Like, you need to know that you want to do this, because otherwise you're not going to do it
Right.
to the full extent it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that just causes generational hurt for it.
Right.
Because now your child is going to know. Like, children know when they're not loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely it's not, I think it's kind of like calling. I think that to be a parent is not something that everyone needs to be.
Right.
There's plenty of parents who not sure if you should be.
It's interesting because, I was thinking about the barrenness in the Old Testament. You hear about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
And as a curse, right? And here we are in the 21st century, and a woman is barren, and they'll spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars doing different things to correct that. And yet people will be like, okay, well, that's of God, right? Spending all that money, doing all, and I'm not saying it's not, right? And saying, okay, well, and that's not counteracting what God desires. But then the flip side of, oh, you're using birth control, you're counteracting what God desires.
Oh.
Right. So you kind of, how can we play both sides of that?
I never thought about that before. That's crazy.
The Holy Spirit's pretty cool like that.
Yeah.
Right? But I think we look at those and you see how quickly we can flip that argument back and forth, and we're playing both sides.
Yeah.
Right. And going, well, no, God gave us the ability for both.
Right.
One, be contraceptive. And understand, when I say contraceptive, I'm talking about preventing life from happening.
Yeah.
Not killing life. That's a whole different argument.
That's not contraceptive.
Right?
That's abortion.
The abortion pill, the day after pill, that's killing.
Yeah.
Right? Having a contraceptive that doesn't allow the sperm to get to the egg, life doesn't happen. Life not even started at that
right.
point. I think that we have to put that. So I'm not talking about that in this world. What I'm talking about is, what has God given us, and where are we at this point? If all knowledge is from God, right?
Yeah.
If He is the supreme God that He is, right? And so the doctors and the ability and where we've come at this point that they can correct barrenness, then why isn't the same where if we could say, okay, I'm not ready, I'm not mentally ready, physically ready, spiritually ready, right? That for a child. Why is it any different than I say, okay, I want to prevent life from starting?
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're trying to almost protect the future life.
Yes.
Quality.
Correct.
Of life.
Right.
Yeah. Or if you're done,
yeah,
you're preserving the quality of life that's already been
yeah.
established.
Yeah. One of the interesting stories in the Bible is David and Bathsheba. Most people know, if you've been in the Bible at any time, David and Bathsheba.
Watched VeggieTales.
Right. Yeah. Watch. Right. The ducky. He goes, David's the king of Israel. He goes and he sleeps with another man's wife. She gets pregnant. He ends up killing the other man. He doesn't kill him. He
arranges his death. Yeah.
He said, hey, put him in the front lines of the war
to
back up and let him die. Right.
And it was one of his best friends. That's a whole other
That's
a whole other podcast.
It was bad. And then he takes, she mourns a little bit. He takes him as his wife. They have a child.
Yeah.
The child dies.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an interesting story because the child, God's told David, hey, this is what's going to happen. David fasts as the child is sick, fasts and prays. And then it's really interesting. The child dies. David gets up, puts on his clothes, gets ready and eats.
I'd be so mad if I was Bathsheba.
Yeah, and the servants.
I'd be so mad.
Yeah, we don't know about Bathsheba's response, but the servants are confused.
Right.
Right, and David's like, God did what God was going to do. And I was talking to somebody in Africa actually. When I was in Africa, they had lost a child, and they brought up that story to me, and they wanted justification. Why did my child get taken? So here's the deal. If you look at David and Bathsheba, understand that child for the rest of their life is going to be a bastard.
Yeah.
It's going to be known as an illegitimate child.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be raised in the kingdom as an illegitimate child. And if we follow David's lineage and what happens, it gets messed up. Right? David's own son overthrows him, kicks him out, kills people. Right? All this stuff ends up happening. and you look at that child and go, what kind of quality of life would that child have had? Right?
None.
That poor
Like,
child would have been a horrible life. And so you
Right.
look at it, you're like, that was almost like God's grace and mercy on the child of David and Bathsheba out of wedlock.
Yeah.
Right. And so God is sovereign. Like, let me just say it that way. God is sovereign, and he's going to do that which is best. And I bring that story up when we think about family planning, right? To realize that God does care about the quality of life of people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, as good stewards, if David was being a good steward, he wouldn't have done what he did, right?
Right.
Right. To begin with. But because he did what he did, and this seed was produced, God decided when the seed was going to die, right? Which, again, is the whole abortion argument, right? God decides, not us, But David needed to be a steward. And I think that's just where it gets to. I keep using that word over and over again because I think that's it.
Yeah.
As parents, we are stewards. We're stewards of that which God gives us, and we're stewards to our kids. Like I've said this before, that my daughters, they're my daughters, but they're his daughter.
Yeah.
I answer to God for how I treated them, how I raised them.
Yeah.
What they're doing, that, all of that I've done, they're his, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we got to change our mind in how we think about, like, these are my kids. Yes. Yeah. Only because you answer to him.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like me as a pastor, these are my sheep, right, at the church, but I'm the under shepherd. I answer to him for how I treat my sheep, how I train my sheep, how I love on them and I care for them, right, of my flock. Well, it's the same thing with our kids.
Yeah. So how does that apply? Like, how do you apply that then? What does being a good steward of his children look like, do you think, like, practically speaking?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of that. It's a good question, though. But again, like, financially, emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy, right? Do I have enough time? Am I actually, helping them fulfill and become that which God has called them to become, right? And so when we look at kids, I think one of the things that we have to always think about is that, like, what has God called them to? Not what I think they're called to.
Yeah.
Like, but to look at my youngest daughter and go, okay, what has God called you to? Okay, well, how do I help her become the best model of that?
Yeah.
Right? So then, therefore, my resources go to that.
But that means
time and my talent and my treasures, everything goes to the resources of building her into who she's supposed to be, because God created her for that.
But that means you're supposed to have a conversation with your child about what God's calling them to. That's with, like, how old?
Yeah.
When do you start having that conversation?
Immediately. Right. I really do mean that, because kids' values are created, I think, by 3 years old.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that young.
If you think about that, they say that 3 years old, they've got their value already. They understand life. They're already set. 3. I mean,
that seems so young.
Right. But they're set there. They've learned, and obviously they're going to grow. They're going to learn more, and then they're going to reshape things. But the majority of who they are is going to be set by 3. Right. What they value about themselves, what they value about other people. And so I think at the very beginning, we begin to instill that in our children, that they're valuable, right? That they've been gifts and talents, and God can use them, and to build that up, to teach them right from wrong.
Right.
We're doing all of that at an early age. And then I think, which is an interesting conversation we can have about church as well. We know our kids.
Yeah.
Right. And we start seeing their abilities. We start seeing how they act, how they treat people, how they do things, the likes and the dislikes. We start seeing all that. And then we communicate with God and go, God, help me. Help me to understand and to see them more fully. Paul says, and he's talking about the church, he says that he's, he basically, I've tried my hardest to create a bunch of fully mature Christians. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that, as a parent, should be the same thing. I've tried my hardest to create a fully mature Christian.
Yeah.
right? That's walking according to God's plans. So we start that at the early age and we continue. And at some point, we go from less of a parenting dictatorship style into more of a coaching style, but that's after they're grown. We continue to be in that moment with them. And I say dictator in this concept of like, I got to teach you right from wrong.
Yeah.
I got to teach you, yes, you can do that. You can't do
Yeah.
that. Right. You're not quite there, but then we begin to make that transition and realizing, depending on the child, those moments where we go into more of a coaching mindset with them, but always in that mind of like, how do I help them figure out what they're called to do?
Yeah.
Not tell them what they're called to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like hoist our own expectations.
Yeah, I think parents do that too often, and we see the capability, or we want to live our life through them, or whatever it might be. We got to be cautious of that. I think looking at them, going, okay, what is it that I want you to, or what is it that God wants you to do, and therefore, how do I help you grow in that?
Yeah.
Which means I got to deny myself a lot of times, and like, okay, man, I see this in you, and I really want to pull this out of you, and I'm going to continue to pray and hopefully get it out of you at some point. But I have to realize, again, I'm parenting for God. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not helping him out, but I'm trying to do what he would do in this scenario, and looking at my kids in that light, like,
Yeah.
so that when I walk away and I see my daughters doing whatever they're doing, that I know that they're happy.
Yeah.
Right? That they're satisfied, and that they feel valued.
Yeah.
They're comforted, right? They're attacking life with every weapon that they could.
Yeah.
And succeeding.
Yeah. And I know for my own situation with my parents, like not only did they give us a lot of tools, but they still stand in the background and you need that knife sharpened.
Yeah.
You got that hatchet. Right. It's still good. Okay.
Yeah.
Shoot. I just called my mom the other day. I was crying over a birthday cake.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. The falling apart. She goes, just put it in the fridge. Put it in the fridge. She's still, I'm in my 30s now, and my mom is still there coaching me. And like, man, parenting's for the long haul.
Right.
And if I'm at her house, I'm still following her around as we talk, and she's doing things, and that's what my daughters do to me. I'm like,
right.
This doesn't stop.
No.
Like, it doesn't stop just because they have their kids. It shouldn't. Right.
Yeah. And I think that the struggle is we forget as parents. I see a lot of gentle parenting, hover parenting, where they helicopter parents, lawnmower parents, or best friend parents. You're just none of those. You're none of those. You're the parent.
Yeah.
You're not their best friend. You're not to mow all their troubles away and cover them for everything. They need to deal with troubles. They need to learn through those. And I think, again, to be it goes back to family planning, right? I'm trying to plan how those kids I have become the best version of them.
Not you.
Not me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that really annoys my wife are these little signs that'll say things like, I remember how exactly it goes. When I had my daughter, I didn't know I'd have my best friend.
Yeah.
She goes, that's garbage. That's absolute garbage. It's, your daughter is not your best friend. She's not your bestie. We just lost some wives right there, some moms right there on that one.
I mean, you'll lose the rest of them if you go after the boy moms.
Yeah, right.
I'm his first love.
Yes. Oh my word. I love my mommy. I mean, I do. Like, she's great, but no, I realize who she is.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you have those unhealthy relationships, and that goes back to family planning.
Yeah.
Why are you having your kids?
Yeah.
Are you having your kid because you need a best friend? Because you can't get around other women because they're, what did you say, catty? I like that. Because they're catty, right? So you're going to have a daughter, so you can have your best friend. You can do, mani-pedis together.
Yeah, and feed her what you want her to say.
Right, yeah. Man, that's not being a good steward of what God has entrusted you, so.
It's a lot. Like, I think there is so much more to family planning besides, are we having a baby or not?
Yeah,
like, there's It's a lot more than that.
We're not, we've got just to the baby point. We are not
Yeah.
thinking about how do I get my kids out of high school? Like,
Yeah, and
what does that look like? How do I get them to the next stage of life? And am I being a good steward of my finances so that I'm not a burden on my kids?
yeah.
Because we're not in that world anymore. That I'm not a burden on my kids, and then I actually set them up for success.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I mean, we could spend several hours just on that topic alone.
Like the transition
Of how do we
period.
transition from
Yeah.
that dictator early parenting kind of style into finally into a coaching style,
Yeah.
into the kind of the last style, which is like a sage
Yeah.
almost, right? Like coaching, I'm still on the sidelines, and I'm where the sage is kind of on mountaintop. I'm just waiting for my kid to come see me.
Call you about a birthday cake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they don't need me to call the plays for them any
Right.
longer. Right. That's kind of coaching. You call the plays.
What do you think the general age? Every child is different, of course, but the general age of transitions for those styles. What would you say that is?
Unfortunately, in our world today, I think it's getting closer to 30.
To go from coach to sage?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Which is really sad. But I think we've not done it. My opinion. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's your
This is Jim,
podcast. You get to have
right?
your opinion.
My
yeah.
opinion is that we've done such a poor job raising them,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they still need us in their life a lot longer.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not talking about. There's a financial situation now where kids have to stay with their parents because they can't afford rent. I mean, rent's just
Yeah.
nasty, right? So I understand. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my daughter's 27. I think I'm a sage to her now, right?
Okay.
And I have been for a lot of years. My oldest daughter, I've definitely been a sage to her since she's been like 18,
Yeah.
maybe 19, not because we were perfect, but that was just how we were able to get her. And especially my oldest is very independent anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor too,
Right.
with their
And
personalities.
so different individuals. But I think, yeah, when you look at it, like hopefully by 16, 17, you're so much more like a coach,
Okay.
than anything else. But you're still there. You're still there for every play.
Yeah.
You're watching every play. Sometimes you're a player coach. You're kind of throwing the football to them, right?
Yeah.
You're doing some of the work with them to where you finally are pulling out as a coach early, or they graduate high school, and then depending on their seasons of life, do they get married early? That whole thing. I think because you step in a lot of times when children are first married,
Yeah.
you'll step back into that coaching role, right? Because they need it a little bit more, and then you might step out again. But yeah, I see a lot of parents that are coaching well past their 30s right now. The kids being 30s, they're still coaching, and they're in the game with them,
Yeah.
right? And instead of allowing the kid to make the decision, they're still making decisions for them.
Do you think that's because of the kid's inability, or do you think that's because of the parent's inability to let the kid get
Both
hurt?
and.
Okay.
Both and.
The combo.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because maybe the parent got hurt too much by their parent, and now they're trying to overcompensate. Maybe.
Very, very possible.
Okay.
And again, we talk about these lawnmower parents or helicopter parents. This idea that I want to make sure that my kid, doesn't fail, doesn't have a problem.
You learn more in
make
failure,
decisions,
though.
right? And so I see a lot of parents that are making decisions for them or hand holding their adult children
Yeah.
through decisions. Instead of saying, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a struggle with that transition for so many parents, and I understand the heart. I don't want my daughters to fail. I really don't.
Right.
I would do almost anything, but at some point you've got to make the decision. You're going to learn. And I got a good story for this one. So I don't know how we're doing with time. I feel like we're gone long.
You're okay.
Are we good?
You're okay.
I'll tell you this last story. So my daughter Jordan, like I said, very independent. She cracked her iPhone screen.
Okay.
And so she bought a new iPhone screen, the whole thing. I walk upstairs. I've done multiple of these already, right? So I'm just handy. I like doing that kind of stuff. I walk up and it's like, I'm watching her and going, okay, well, hey, just, I'm here. If you need any help, I'm here. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But, it's your thing. Just just be careful. That specific iPhone had the antenna attached to the very top of it. Most people cut them. Just
Right.
FYI, you know, you don't want to do that.
She cut it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But it was her money.
Yeah.
Right. Her iPhone.
Yep.
Right. Hers. And I'm like, I'm here,
Right.
but I'm not taking over.
Until I'm sure if she came to you with like, hey, can you just do this for me?
Yeah.
You would have been
right
happy
there.
too.
I had offered her, and that was so hard as a parent
Oh,
because she just spent $100. She didn't have a lot of money. You know,
Yeah.
she's working. I can't remember where she worked at that point. Right. So it wasn't like she had a lot of money, but she was Miss Independent, and she spent her own money because she cracked it. She took responsibility, which made me proud.
fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
But it broke my heart because I'm like, I'm right there. You could have,
And you could see
Right.
exactly how this was about to play
I knew
out.
it because I warned her. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen because it happened to most people. It was one of the hardest things to do with that brand. It was like one of the first iPhones that come out. And so, you know, you kind of look at that moment and realize that's the parent that we should be at that moment.
Yeah.
Right. I'm here for you,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to make you, do that. Like, I'm not going to make you utilize me. Know that I'm here. And she learned at that moment a lesson
Yeah.
that, hey, I need to seek my sage out. I need to seek,
Yeah.
somebody who's wiser than I am in certain scenarios. And so as she's gotten older, I see more of that in her when she gets to the point like, Dad, I don't understand something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She started to after that point. It was a lesson that she needed to learn.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids aren't going to learn that because the parent was like, oh, let me do that for you.
Yeah.
You know, and I've heard a lot of this, like their kid breaks their iPhone and they go buy the stuff for them and replace everything and do it all for them. I'm like,
It has no value now, though.
The kid did it himself.
Yeah.
It wasn't even an accident. Sometimes you see them like they get mad. I think of this one family. They don't go here, so I can talk about them, right? The kid threw the phone on the ground, like he got mad.
Yeah.
Threw it on the ground. The parent took care of it.
Yeah.
Like that was the stupidest thing you could do.
Because now they're just going to keep doing
They're
it.
not learning nothing. They didn't take responsibility for anything, and so and we're talking about a high school student. I'm talking about a little kid.
Yeah.
Little kid shouldn't have a phone anyways. That's my opinion. But this older high school kid who's got a job, right? Man, make them pay for it.
Yeah.
But are you being a good steward? I think we can wrap all that into that one statement. Am I being a good steward? Am I being a good steward of my finances, my health, my relationship, my mental health, right? My emotional health. And more important than that, am I in a spot where I can have kids and I can be good stewards for them, right? I can do and be who God has called me to be for them.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, I answer to God for how I raise my kids.
Yeah.
And I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant in all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
Right? Way to raise your daughters. Great job.
Yeah.
Right. Way to not fix their iPhone for them. Right. You're like, I want to hear that because I know at the end of the day how my parent raised me, and the good and the bad of that impacted who I was and set me up for failure in some areas and success in others. And I want my daughters to be able to look back and go, man, my dad, he set me up for success, right? That should be my role, and not to hear the opposite of man, my dad, I didn't know my dad. I didn't know, fatherly love. And, I'm dating all these guys looking for love in all the wrong places. Right. Like all those things. I don't want to be that because I'm called to, as a parent, as a father, to be something different, which means I've got a plan for it. So hopefully this has been enlightening, enjoyable, frustrating, whatever you want to call it. As we've just been talking about family planning, what does that look like? And taking it from the historical mindset of the biblical text and then looking into our culture, which is really what we want to do with all the text. And that's the heart of Slice of Life, is to be like, what does the Bible say? What does it mean? And how does it apply into my life? And how do I apply my life into it? Right? How do I function as a Christian in this world? So if you have any questions, comments, some topics you want to talk about, right? You want to kick me out of here and you want someone else to come in, Hey, let us know that as well. It'd be great. But until next time, talk to you later.